All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Big show ahead for you guys. Are the Democrats running away from health care? That's going to be a topic actually in the third hour. Oh, big show. We're covering everything. You're not going to be able to keep up with us. And then two huge topics in the first hour. What's going on with tax cuts? Are the Democrats going to buckle, right? Because that's always the interesting issue. And once again, that's the central question at hand. I will play out all the different quotes. Maybe the Republicans might buckle. We're going to start with that in a second. And then Newt Gingrich with a new racist attack against Obama. I mean, I hesitate to say racist, except it's totally and utterly racist. So we will get to that also in a little bit. And then we've apparently sold a gargantuan amount of weapons to Saudi Arabia, which makes a lot of sense because luckily none of the 9/11 bombers were Saudis. Hey, wait a minute, that might not be true. All right, we'll get back to that a little later in the program as well. So let's start with tax cuts. Barack Obama has come out strong during this election season saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to do exactly what I promised during the election. I'm going to give tax cuts to people making under $200,000 if they're individuals, $250,000 if they're a family, all right? And I am not going to maintain the Bush tax cuts for people making above that amount, which is about the top 2% of the country, right? And the Republicans said, oh, no, we got to get tax cuts for the rich. We got to get tax cuts for the rich. And Obama said, look, did I stutter? If you vote this whole thing down because you want your tax cuts for the rich, you are holding middle-class America hostage. Fantastic. Nicely done. I've been saying all of last week, hey, he's fighting harder. We're coming towards the elections. That's a good political strategy. And what happened? All of a sudden, John Boehner beginning to buckle, a Republican buckling. Listen to what he's going to say here. Clip number 2.
Are you saying that no way, no how would you vote for the continuing the tax cuts for the folks in the middle class unless it also includes the tax cuts for the people in the upper brackets? In other words, you wouldn't be willing to pass those lower bracket extensions unless you can get the more wealthy people.
If the only option I have is to vote for some of those tax reductions, I'll vote for them. But I've been making the point now for months that we need to extend all the current rates for all Americans if we want to get our economy going again and we want to get jobs in America.
So you were saying you would vote for the middle class tax cuts if that's all you can get done?
If that's what we can get done, but I think that's bad policy. I don't think that's going to help our economy. And I think the other thing that has to happen is that we've got to cut spending.
But I want to make sure I heard what you said correctly. You're saying that you are willing to vote for those middle-class tax cuts, even though the bill will not include extending the tax cuts for the upper bracket Americans.
Bob, we don't know what the bill is going to say, all right? If the only option I have is to vote for those at 250 and below, of course I'm going to do that. But I'm going to do everything I can to fight to make sure that we extend the current tax rates for all Americans.
Oh, look, Bob Schieffer did a great job there. Understood that he was making news there. Went back to it 3 different times. Let me be clear, right? And you know what? Boehner's saying, all right, you win. We'll do the tax cuts for the middle class, even if it's not attached to tax cuts for the rich.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
All right, here we go. Now, and look, to give you a sense of why I tell you got to be strong in politics, you got to beat them with a stick, right? Look at a follow-up quote that Boehner had. He said, this means President Obama won't be able to blame the Republicans for holding the middle class hostage. A top Republican aide in Congress said this about Boehner. So this is the message out there. No, not this one, Jesus. I'm going to get to the Democratic aide in a second. This is a top Republican aide. He says, President Obama won't be able to blame the Republicans for holding the middle class hostage. He and the media will have to face the fact that the real problem is among the Democrats. So here are the Republicans backpedaling. They're saying, oh, no, we're not holding the middle class hostage. We're not holding them hostage. Oh, no, please don't say that. Okay, fine, we'll pass the middle class tax cut. Okay, fantastic. And then the trouble begins. You didn't think it was going to end there, did you? So then there was a little wavering. Actually, Jesus, let me skip to the Van Hollen quote, okay? Because here, nobody snatches, defeat from the jaws of victory better than the Democrats. So U.S. House Democrat Chris Van Hollen is actually in charge of getting more Democrats elected in the House. When asked about this, he said, quote, if they were to come back and say, hey, let's just do 1 year for the top 2% and permanent for the middle class, that would be something that obviously people would have to think about. In other words, just as the Republicans were buckling, here comes the Democrats to outbuckle them, right? Saying, you know what, maybe we give the tax cuts to the rich for 1 year. Maybe that'll be our compromise. Why? Why are you compromising? You just won. Classic Democrats. So what happens? After that, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Minority Leader, comes out and says, oh yeah, I don't know anything about Boehner. On the Senate side, every single one of my colleagues has vowed to block the entire bill if it does not include tax cuts for the richest people in America. We're not budging. And then, of course, here comes so-called Democrats to help them. Independent Democrat Joe Lieberman then comes out and says, oh, yeah, I'm obviously with the Republicans. I want my tax cuts for the rich, and if I don't get them, you get nothing instead, which is exactly holding the middle class hostage, as Obama's been saying. So where does that leave us? Well, that leaves us with compromise. All right, now, but that is not settled, and that is why this is an interesting issue. So the two possibilities we have is like a Van Hollen-like compromise. Peter Orszag, who used to be the budget director, said 2 years, in which case then you would settle the issue in 2013 when you might have a new president, one that's a Republican, and would then extend the Bush tax cuts indefinitely for the rich, right? So now Van Hollen's saying, no, not 2 years, 1 year. They work, and then here's a second compromise. Hey, you know what? We split up the bills, right? And when we split them up, the Republicans and everybody gets to vote yes on the middle class tax cuts. And then we have a real debate about tax cuts for the rich, okay? Now, in my opinion, that lets the Republicans off the hook. Now, apparently I'm not alone, and this is not settled, okay? So, because option number 3 is, no, we stick to our guns, okay? And we say the whole thing gets voted on at the same time. If you want your tax cuts for the rich and you want to vote no based on that, go ahead and vote no on tax cuts for the middle class. So now here comes a top Senate aide that's a Democrat. He says, if you move forward with tax cuts for the middle class, you force the GOP into one of two choices. 1, agree and support the middle class tax cuts, or 2, stand up for lobbyists and corporate executives as they push to include the higher end tax cuts as well. We win with either option. Either middle class tax cuts pass, or Republicans are isolated and look awful defending tax cuts for the richest of the rich. Now, ding, 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 we have a winner. That is exactly how they should go, right? So which way is it going to go? Out of all those options, my guess, and now I'm guessing, now those are the facts, now here comes the speculation. Based on those facts, and knowing the Democrats for who they are, they will split the bill. And they will let the Republicans off the hook. As John Boehner mentioned, they'll go vote for the middle class tax cuts. And once they split the bill, what's Mitch McConnell going to do? Say, no, I'm voting against middle class tax cuts? Of course he's not going to do that. He's going to vote yes on that, right? But then you don't get to run ads saying, hey, the Republicans voted against middle class tax cuts. You, politically speaking, totally let them off the hook. And then they will introduce the second portion, tax cuts for the rich, and at which point some conservative Democrats will vote for it, Republicans will vote for it, but they won't have enough votes. In the end, you get the policy you wanted. No tax cuts for the rich, but, you know, tax cuts for the middle class, if that's what you want. Now, me, I'm tougher. I actually don't want tax cuts for anybody. It blows a $4 trillion hole in our budget, and I don't want it, and I don't think it makes sense, and I don't think it's a good way to stimulate the economy, right? But if you're progressive or you agree with the president, then that's the policy you want. Politically speaking, though, you give the Republicans exactly what they want. You don't hold them accountable for voting against the middle class, and then they get to turn around and go, oh, you see that? Democrats, always for tax increases. They voted for tax increases on job creators and small businesses. That's how they'll frame it. Now, why would you fall into that trap? 1, because you're Barack Obama and you love falling into that trap every single time. Number 2, their reason behind it is the conservative Democrats. We had to look out for them. Those are the guys that are in tight elections, etc. And we didn't want to beat them up while we were beating up the Republicans. So we eased up on everybody involved, and we gave them what they wanted. I think it's a terrible political decision. Well, if it goes that way. But let me add here, if Obama holds strong and says, no, we're going to vote on this whole thing together, right? And if you want to vote for middle-class tax cuts, you have to vote against the rich tax cuts. Or if you want to vote against us raising the taxes by 3% for the highest bracket above $250,000, well, then you're going to have to vote against the middle-class tax cuts. If he does that, I'm going to give him all the credit in the world, because you will get that policy. It will pass. I'm telling you right now, you beat them with a stick and they will do. You saw John Boehner there, however you want to pronounce his name. Okay. And you will get the political win. Anybody want to take odds? I say they go soft. But I'm still hoping for hard, and I'll give them all the credit if they go hard. Okay? Now, you get a sense of how much the Republicans will buckle when you listen to Newt Gingrich, of all people. Now, we're going to play clip number 5 for you here, and then I'm going to decipher it. Okay? Let's watch.
Question. If congressional Democrats try to extend the Bush tax cuts for the middle class, can Republicans afford to block that until they also get the tax cut for the so-called wealthy?
No, in fact, I think the Republicans will probably surprise the president by offering to pass whatever tax cut he'll sign, as long as it is an offset by tax increases. I mean, every time the president says, I'll cut taxes over here, he then says, but by the way, I'll raise taxes over here. And you end up with a net destruction of jobs. I think Republicans ought to say, we're going to pass any tax cut that you'll sign that has no increases, and we'll come back in January as a majority, and we'll see if we can pass the rest.
But you're, in effect, saying that at least until you, if and when you gain control of Congress, you're giving up on the tax cut for the wealthy.
No, you're saying that the President of the United States is determined to stop the tax increases on people who create jobs. He is the president. It's better to at least help the middle class, even if that doesn't create jobs. And I think that the Republicans would be very wise to say, we will pass any tax cut this president will sign as long as it doesn't have a poison pill of a tax increase.
Do you understand what Gingrich is saying there? He's saying, please, please, please split the bill. If you split the bill, we will pass the middle-class tax cuts. And we'll lose on the other one, but we'll get to play political games with that one. They're laying down, and they want you to split the bill. Both of those things are happening. If you don't split the bill, they're going to lay down, okay? Boehner's saying it, Gingrich is saying it. If you do split the bill, you make their day. You're like, oh, thank God. We get to vote for the middle-class tax cuts and then beat them up for raising taxes. All right. By the way, one other small note on that before I go to other Gingrich clips on the economy and tax cuts, et cetera. Associated Press had a story about this, about all the different games that are being played. And at the end, they included a graph of what the tax rates have been throughout the country since 1913. And they show you, hey, look at that. They were in the 70s and 90s, all throughout the years that America was blossoming. Who's the guy who's been pushing that for now a couple of months? I don't know. I saw that. I was like, huh, I've never seen that graph before in an Associated Press story. Maybe it's a little mission accomplished. Maybe us getting out there and talking about it and hitting it over and over and over again, it got through to some people. Maybe, I hope. Okay. So, and that's part of the reason why we want to, like people say, oh, what are you selling out to go to MSNBC for? Oh, just calm down, dude. Okay. The reason you go on there is so that you can influence the people that are writing the stories, that are making the decisions. You see my point? You hope, in a best-case scenario. All right, now let's go back to Gingrich. Apparently today is going to be like 50% of the show is going to be Gingrich because he's saying a lot of nonsense. So, but before we get to his racist stuff, let's finish up with the business talk and the economy talk. Now we're going to talk about tax cuts for the rich. I'm going to give it a little bit more nuance. Let's go to clip number 6. Okay.
Let's talk, though, about, because you still want to continue the Bush tax cut for the so-called wealthy, people making over $250,000 a year. Let me just follow up on that. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office analyzed 11 different policy options on how to boost the economy, and they found that tax cuts for high earners would have the lowest, what they call bang for the buck, of any of them to boost the economy, because they say high earners are more likely to save the money than to spend it.
Well, first of all, the bureaucrats at the Congressional Budget Office who don't create jobs and aren't entrepreneurs, gave you their bureaucratic interpretation of reality. The thing that the president doesn't understand, and the thing that Keynesian economics got wrong, is real simple. Do you want people to have enough money to invest to create jobs? If they have a surplus of income so they can create jobs, that's somehow bad, and the president wants to take away the income. That means he's leaving them with no money to create jobs. You look around this country today, virtually every entrepreneur in this country today says, and they say it to me day after day, I'm not creating any jobs while this guy's president because he simply wants to take away the money. So why would I go out and risk my capital to create a job so he could increase taxes, increase the cost of health care, increase government control, increase regulations? The result is this is the longest recession since the Great Depression and the longest period of really severe unemployment, and he has no answer for the unemployment.
All right. Let's tackle that one thing at a time. First, the very ending. Longest recession, highest unemployment. And who started that? Who caused that in the beginning? Was that President Obama that started this Great Recession? Oh, right. That was President Bush and the Republicans in Congress. Weird how he left that out. Then he says in the beginning, oh, CBO with their numbers and facts. They're bureaucrats. So if they agree with you, they've got lovely facts. If they disagree with you, bureaucrats, they never created a job. What the hell does that mean? Does that mean like we shouldn't listen to scientists because they don't create jobs and all they have is annoying facts? Well, actually, I'm sure the Republicans would agree with that. Right? No, they're telling you what the reality is. They've got economic facts. Oh, bureaucrats. Facts, I hate it. I'm a Republican. Point number 3, he says, no, we have to give surplus income to the rich. And once they have their surplus income that we've showered them with, then they will maybe create jobs. But we've shown you in the past, on a macro level, almost all the tax cuts that went to the highest brackets during the Bush era went outside of the country. Yeah, they created jobs in China, Mexico, and other places. Bless their hearts, China and Mexico needed the jobs too, but it doesn't really create jobs at home. So that's a lie that Newt Gingrich is saying, and he knows it. And point number 4, he says, all the small business owners I know, they say, we're not going to create any jobs while Obama's in charge. Well, wait a minute. So if I give them the surplus income, you're telling me they're not going to create jobs anyway because they're angry and bitter at Obama, like kids. Second of all, what an unbelievable lie. I know small business owners, and nobody's saying, oh, I'm not going to create any jobs. No, they want to make money. If they think that it will make them money by adding new employees, they will, okay? If they think they're not going to make money off it, they won't. Or, you know what, they think they can make money, but they can't get a loan because the big banks have all the money and they won't lend it out. Again, they can't get the loan, they can't create more jobs. But nobody says, oh, Obama might raise my taxes above $250,000 by an extra 3%, so forget it, I'm not going to try. If that's what they think, they're the worst business owners in the world. It's a made-up fallacy. And why does Newt Gingrich and the Republicans make it up? It's because they want to protect the rich and give them more money. They are the richy rich party. Anybody who doesn't understand that, I can't believe it. You got to be a knucklehead not to realize all these guys want to do, their number 1 through number 99 objective is get more money to the rich. All right, you're going to do it again. Let's go to clip number 7.
If you extend, as you want, as Republicans want, all the Bush tax cuts, that is going to blow a $3 trillion hole in the deficit. I thought your party was so concerned about debt and the deficits.
Look, when you have a 16-year-old with a credit card who doesn't think the bills come due, you can never get caught up because they'll just charge more. The President of the United States has radically increased the size of the federal government since Bush left office. When we balanced the federal budget in the 1990s, which we did for 4 years, we controlled spending and we cut taxes simultaneously and we reformed government. There's no reason...
Taxes were higher in the 1990s than they are now because you got the Bush tax cuts of 2001 and 3. What about the argument? I mean, John Boehner, the House Republican leader's idea was go back to the last Bush budget and keep all the Bush tax cuts. Isn't he making the Democratic argument that your party's idea is let's go back to Bush?
Well, first of all, if you want to go back to the world of before Pelosi and Reid of December of 2006, there was a lot higher employment, a lot higher income. The middle class was much better off. That would not, I think most Americans...
You can't blame the whole financial crisis on Reid and Pelosi.
No, but you can blame the level of failure for the last 2 years and the level of spending for the last 4 years on the liberal Democrats, both in the Congress and in the White House.
No, I can't blame them, except I will. Yeah, Reid and Pelosi caused the crash. Do I have to say anything about that? How disingenuous are they? All right. By the way, you got to give credit to Chris Wallace. There were some good questions there. And you could tell when Newt Gingrich went, Reid and Pelosi, I don't know. Okay. So one last thing for you here in this segment. I want to go back to John Boehner. He's on Face the Nation. And Schieffer's going to ask him, hey, this weekend was nothing but good questions by talk shows or these Sunday talk shows. Got to give him credit. Here's clip number one.
When you start to look at who's going to be taxed, about half of all small business income will be taxed under the president's proposal. These are the very people that we expect to invest in the economy and to begin creating jobs. Why would we want to punish them?
Now, let me just say this. The Joint Committee on Taxation, which is a nonpartisan body, says that only 3% of those small business people, you keep talking about all the small business people that are going to get taxed, only 3% would be affected by that. Or do you quarrel with that figure? Is that a right figure or a wrong figure?
Well, it may be 3%, but it's half of small business income. Because obviously the top 3% have half of the gross income for those companies that we would term small businesses. And this is why you don't want to punish these people at a time when you have a weak economy. Well, we need them to reinvest.
In other words, yes, it is only 3% of small businesses. So we keep saying, oh, we're trying to protect small businesses. What we leave out is we actually don't care about 97% of small businesses. We only care about the top 3%. And look, because they're the richest, his number is actually wrong. It's not 50%. It's 40% of the income from the top 3% of small businesses, right? So they're like, well, since they're the richest, they have the most amount of money, so we should protect them more, right? Right? No, not necessarily. And second of all, just because you raise not their business taxes, their personal income taxes by a tiny percentage doesn't mean that you're hurting them or you're trying to hurt them. No, it means you want to balance the budget so we don't have a $700 billion hole in it. And obviously cutting their taxes, as Bush did and as Boehner did not work. They didn't create more jobs. We lost 8 million jobs. How about we give tax cuts, which by the way, I got to check myself because I don't even believe in giving tax cuts to the 97%. Okay, to be fair. But that's certainly a better idea than giving it to the top 3%. But, you know, I keep saying that. I just want you to know why. I've probably repeated this 2 or 3 times, but I want to make sure every time because somebody new might be listening. Look, the top tax cut to the top 2% is $700 billion. We can't lose that $700 billion. It's crazy. Remember, at that, those are the rates, we'd bring it back to the Clinton rates where everything was going well, right? But the other tax cuts that Obama and the Democrats want, that also costs over $3 trillion. Imagine what we could do if we saved $4 trillion. I mean, if instead of giving tax cuts to everybody, we took the $4 trillion or $3 trillion or $2 trillion or $1 trillion and invested it in the country in green energy or transportation or infrastructure or just flat out hiring people, how much better it would be spent. So we've done tax cuts a million times. It doesn't work. I don't think it works even for the middle class, let alone for the rich. That's why I'm against it. All right, Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. Apparently, we can't get enough of Newt Gingrich today. Unfortunately, he's all over the news. He's created another controversy. So let's tell you what it is. Newt Gingrich has come out and made some outrageous comments about the president. He's done it on purpose, obviously, and he's playing racial politics. Now, that's a polite way of putting it. As we get into the story, we'll put it in impolite ways. First, what's he saying? He's saying, quote, "What if Obama is so outside of our comprehension that only if you understand Kenyan anti-colonial behavior can you begin to piece together his actions? That is the most accurate, predictive model for his behavior." First question I have, of course, is what? Kenyan anti-colonialism? What the hell does that have anything to do with anything? Why would you bring that up out of nowhere? Now, he's quoting a Dinesh D'Souza article in Forbes. I've read that, and we'll discuss that too, right? But you're throwing Kenyan in there? What, just coincidentally? What is your evidence for him having a Kenyan anti-colonialist attitude? Well, if you read the Dinesh D'Souza article, the big evidence is his dad was Kenyan. So we're going to throw that out there. Now, why do they throw that out there? Come on, anybody with 2 bits of sense knows why they throw that out there. It's red meat for their fringe radical right-wingers who are like, oh yeah, he's totally from Kenya. That guy is so black. I'm not even sure he was born here. You don't put the word Kenyan in there and go into some random theory about how his dad was against colonialism 50 years ago, 60 years ago. You don't get into that unless you're doing it on purpose and you're playing racial politics. Look, you want me to go further? Easy enough. Is Newt Gingrich being racist here? Abso-frickin-lutely. He's trying to appeal to people saying, remember this guy's dad was Kenyan. Kenyan, Kenyan, Kenyan. Gee, I wonder why he would say that. All right, now Robert Gibbs has decided to respond. Let's go to his, he's talking to George Stephanopoulos here at Good Morning America, and Stephanopoulos has asked him to respond to this Gingrich comment. So let's watch.
It is hard to comprehend. I don't even have, quite frankly, George, the slightest idea what he's talking about.
No idea what he's talking about? You think it's appropriate?
I think Newt Gingrich knows that he's trying to appeal to the fringe of people that don't believe the president was born in this country. You would normally expect better from somebody who'd held the position of Speaker in the House, but look, it's political season and most people will say anything, and Newt Gingrich does that on a regular basis.
All right, so now Newt Gingrich has also said that, of course, this is the Alinsky model. Yeah, because I know Alinsky was a Kenyan, right? Right? And then, but Alinsky is connected to Bill Ayers, and the Bill Ayers, and the terrorists, and the Reverend Wright, and they're all black and Muslim. I don't know. Kenyan, boom, right? And he says that Obama is, quote, authentically dishonest. I mean, this all goes to Robert Gibbs' first point, which is, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Okay. And his second point is that Gingrich will say anything to get in the news and to appeal to the far right wing. The DNC press secretary, Hari Sevagan, sorry for the mispronunciation, said about Gingrich, he's not a reasonable man that some thought he could be. He's proven that he's just like the rest of them, that he's appealing to the radical and fringe elements of the Republican Party. That is undoubtedly true. That's the only reason you'd make a comment like this. And then Gingrich responds with a tweet, which is always fun. The idea of Gingrich tweeting always amuses me. He says, thrilled that the White House, through the press secretary, decided to highlight Dinesh D'Souza's excellent article at Forbes magazine, and then he gives a link to it, okay? So he's like, ha, you got drawn into my web. Now we're talking about this nonsense story, how Obama's a Kenyan. So what is this brilliant article of Dinesh D'Souza? So I went and read it on Forbes. It was rather long, and I was amused by it. Because first he begins with, nobody could understand what Obama's policies are. And he has a laundry list of policies he disagrees with. But he doesn't say he disagrees with them. He says, who can figure this stuff out? He wants health care for Americans. Crazy. I can't figure it out. It's so weird and irrational. And he goes down the whole list, and he says, then he asks finally, and he says, look, a lot of people have two theories. One is that he's a socialist, and the other one is that he's totally clueless about business. Really, those were the only two theories available on Obama, apparently, right? He says, no, I've got a third theory. It's not either one of those. And here comes the first quote. He says, the real problem with Obama is worse, much worse. Here's a man who spent his formative years, the first 17 years of his life, off the American mainland, in Hawaii, Indonesia, and Pakistan, with multiple subsequent journeys to Africa. A good way to discern what motivates Obama is to ask a simple question. What is his dream? Is it the American dream? Is it Martin Luther King's dream? Or something else? And then he goes on to answer the question by saying, well, of course, it's something else. It's his dad's dream. You know, his dad, who's Kenyan. So goes back and dredges up all these old things that his dad had written or thought about or contemplated. And he says back in the 1950s, his dad was against colonialism in Kenya. Who was for colonialism in Kenya in the 1950s other than the colonialists? Everybody in Kenya was against it, right? But Dinesh D'Souza goes, aha! I got him! And everything he says obviously applies to Obama. Obama Sr., Obama Jr., those are the words he keeps using. So here comes his smear of Obama's dad. It's okay, and you know, he finds an article and he's got a quote in there, so you want to have at it, have at it. But Obama's dad is not Obama, and this is not 60 years ago. But I'll give you the quote. Here it is. He says, the senior Obama proposed that the state confiscate private land and raise taxes with no upper limit. In fact, he insisted that, quote, theoretically, there is nothing that can stop the government from taxing 100% of income, so long as the people get benefits from the government commensurate with their income, which is taxed. Remarkably, President Obama, who knows his father's history very well, has never mentioned his father's article. Yeah, he's also not mentioned probably 128 other articles his dad has written, because they were written in the 1950s and 60s. And Barack Obama didn't write them. His dad did in a totally different time, for totally different context. Does he have to go out there and say, all right, Dad's article number 87, kind of like the beginning, don't like the end. Dad's article number 88, largely disagree with most of it, but it applies to Kenya and not here. Aha! Since he didn't disavow one article I found about his dad, obviously he agrees with everything his dad says, and that's why he's trying to take white people's money. Oh, oops, did I say that out loud? That's where they're driving with this thing. Do you understand it? Oh, taking all of the people's money and giving it, redistributing it, like that Glenn Beck talks about, Rush Limbaugh talks about, etc. All right, so quote number 3. Now that he's set it up, and now we understand what Kenyan anti-colonialist Barack Obama is, apparently, or Obama Jr., as he keeps calling him, he has this conclusion. Dinesh D'Souza says, incredibly, the U.S. is being ruled according to the dreams of a Luo tribesman of the 1950s, the philandering, inebriated African socialist who raged against the world for denying him the realization of his anti-colonial ambitions, is now setting the nation's agenda through the reincarnation of his dreams in his son. How many racial slurs can you fit in a sentence? This Luo tribesman with his philandering, inebriated African socialist, raging, as you know the angry black men tend to do. He is somehow, in a mind meld, controlling his son 60 years later, and that is why Obama is doing all these things so that Kenya could be free. And that relates to our health care in this country. How? Who cares? Just throw a lot of African stuff on there and smear them and then hope it sticks. And that's the Republican strategy, which, by the way, I'm sure Dinesh D'Souza and Newt Gingrich would also apply to conservative figures like the Koch brothers, who finance almost all of the conservative infrastructure, have spent hundreds of millions of dollars doing so. You know, the Koch brothers, you know who their dad was? Their dad made their initial fortune by working with a guy named Joseph Stalin. So I'm sure the Koch brothers agree with Joseph Stalin and agree with working with Stalin, right? Right? Because everything their dad did, they did and agree with, right? Their dad was also in the John Birch Society and said that the Negroes were all communists. And the civil rights movement was part of a communist movement to take over America. I'm sure the Koch brothers agree with that 100%, right? Oh, you don't like it when it's applied to conservatives. How about George H.W. Bush's dad, who made business deals with Nazi Germany? Now, look, whenever we bring up that story, I say, look, that isn't George W. Bush. That isn't George H.W. Bush. He was making business deals with Germany, and that's loathsome, and the government stepped in and stopped it at some point, right? But you can't say the sins of the father are passed on to the son, etc. But according to Newt Gingrich and Dinesh D'Souza and conservatives, apparently you can. So I guess that would make the Koch brothers and all of the conservatives that they have funded, including the Heritage Foundation, Cato Institute, Freedom Works, and the list goes on and on, they're all communists who work with Stalin, and the Bushes are Nazis. You would agree, right? On this logic, you would agree. All right, good. I'm glad we agree. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. Tim Beidler has emailed in just now, one of our listeners, with an excellent comment. And I'm sorry I missed it. He said, you know who else was anti-colonialist? The Founding Fathers. That's a pretty good point. I hope Barack Obama doesn't have that kind of anti-colonialist fever. I mean, if that's his ideology, we're in a lot of trouble. Tim, nicely done. All right. Now, I want to go on to the third thing that has enraged me today. What a fun job I have. Things that enrage me. You know what grinds my gears? Jesus is trying to get me to say that on Dylan Radigan's show. All right, anyway. So we have a new deal. Hey, everybody, it's fantastic. Get excited, okay? It turns out we've got a $60 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia. That's great. So what does Saudi Arabia get? We get $60 billion. Oh, wait, let me make a correction. We don't get $60 billion. Our defense contractors get $60 billion. What does Saudi Arabia get? Well, they get 84 new F-15 fighters. They get to upgrade 70 more of their fighters. And then they purchase 70 Apache helicopters, 72 Blackhawks, 36 Little Birds, among others. That's a pretty good deal for Saudi Arabia. They get a whole lot of American weaponry. Now, let's review what is and is not offensive about 9/11, okay? And who should and should not be attacked. Let's start there. Iraq had absolutely, positively nothing to do with 9/11. None of the one of the terrorists that did it were Iraqis. Saddam Hussein did not plan it. He did not take part in it. In fact, he was opposed to al-Qaeda because al-Qaeda was trying to topple his government as well. Iraq had zero, zilch, double zeros. Nothing to do with 9/11. They got attacked anyway. Afghanistan got attacked because al-Qaeda was being sheltered by the government of Afghanistan, led by the Taliban at the time. Who didn't get attacked? Saudi Arabia. None of the terrorists were Afghans. None. Zero. Right? 15 out of the 19 were Saudis. Now, did those Saudis that did the bombings themselves, the actual terrorists, and al-Qaeda, did they get funding from Saudi Arabia? Of course they did. Now, the government of Saudi Arabia is not monolithic. You should know that and understand that's important, right? I'm not saying the government of Saudi Arabia came and wrote a check, said, Mohammed Atta, here you go. No, but there are many factions of the Saudi government, many princes. One of the people that was in the royal family in Saudi Arabia was a guy by the name of Osama bin Laden, who is also a Saudi, and who took Saudi money and carried out 9/11. And there are many charges, very credible ones, saying that people within the Saudi government are still supporting those guys. Did they get attacked? No. What did they get instead? A $60 billion defense deal. Why? Hey, because our defense contractors got to get paid. What we did after 9/11 had nothing to do with 9/11. It had to do with who's getting paid and who's not. Saddam Hussein doesn't want to play ball. He doesn't want to sell oil through us. He wants to switch to euros, etc. He was our partner before. Remember when Don Russell was shaking his hand? He's not our partner anymore. He's not our business partner. Well, he's got to go. The Saudis actually financed and carried out 9/11? No, who cares? They're still paying us. They're our business partner. And what did Bush do? He walked around the Rose Garden holding hands with the guys. You remember when they were nearly making out? Okay? So now we're officially making out with them by giving them $60 billion of weapons. So the defense contractors can get rich. Point number two. You know who's attacking our troops in Iraq? It was Sunni insurgents funded by Saudi Arabia. We have documentation on that. We showed it on the show during the middle of the Iraq War, and I was yelling and screaming, the Saudis, our government is saying the Saudis are funding the people who are killing our troops. What do they get? A $60 billion defense contracts as a reward. They get all these new weapons, and they can use them on whoever they like, okay? Because it ain't about terrorism. It's about the money, Lebowski. Now, point number 3. Conservatives in this country pretend to be outraged by an Islamic center in lower Manhattan that is close to ground zero. They say, oh, the memory of 9/11. But yet we can sell $60 billion of weapons to the guys, to some of the guys who financed 9/11, some of the guys who executed 9/11. All that can go to Saudi Arabia, and that is not an offense to the people who died on 9/11. Now, what kind of sense does that make? Well, if you care about logic and reason, and you care about American policy, it doesn't make any sense at all. If all you care about is money and business relationships for our multinational corporations and our defense contractors, well, then it makes perfect sense. You understand? The crime was not 9/11. The crime, especially in the case of Iraq, was that they didn't do business with us. If you do business with us, you can do any damn thing you please, and we'll still give you the weapons. Look, when you see stories like that, you despair, man. I don't know. I despair of our democracy. I really do. We are bought and sold, man. And you know who else will raise a peep out of this? Look, I know because I was going to do a rant on this, and I might still do one on Radigan's show tomorrow for my daily rant. It's at MSNBC, a little past 4:30. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying you should check it out. But you know what? Radigan led the show with this. It was his #1 story, okay? You know who else will do it? My guess is no one else. Okay? This will disappear. It'll float away. That didn't float much. It'll float away. Float away. Nobody will ever talk about that story again, other than us and I guess Dylan Radigan. Because everybody takes like, well, of course, well, obviously we're bought. What are you doing logic for? What the hell's your problem, right? Who attacked us on 9/11? Who gives a shit? You want to see you see why I want to get into the mainstream media, so we can make people focus on it a little bit. Because if you're not, unfortunately, if you're not on television, nobody pays any attention. Like we say it here, and look, a lot of people will pay attention, and you'll spread the clips around, and a lot of people will view it, right? And that's how we do a revolution. Don't get me wrong. About people in Washington, this will be their response. That's true too. I didn't mean that, but that boy is that true. I meant this. Saudi Arabia, what name so? All right. Now, speaking of how we're getting hosed, I got more fun facts for you. 2009 figures are about to come out, and they will likely show a significant rate of increase. Oh, thank God, finally we have an increase of poverty. Oops. Poverty apparently is going to go from about 14.7% of the country to 15% of the country. It's actually the largest increase in poverty since 1959. Okay. 45 million Americans will live in poverty. That is 1 in 7 Americans. What are we going to? We're going to third world America. I know it sounds like I'm plugging Ariana having this book, but she's right. I've been talking about this for how long now? We're getting a split. The really, really rich and everybody else. That's at the very bottom. And they're pushing you down there. They're pushing you down there. And if you ever fight back, they go, oh, class warfare. Class warfare, I can't believe these sons of bitches are trying to cut my tax rates by 1 or increase my tax rates by 1 or 2%. How did we lose all these jobs? How did I lose your jobs? Oh, I don't know. It was probably Obama's fault. Child poverty is going to increase from 19% to more than 20%. 1 in 5 kids in America will be living in poverty. Third world America? This is disaster, man. But don't worry, they're going to fix it. One last quick story for you. We have the Basel III rules. These are top countries, economic countries throughout the world getting together and making a decision on what to do with banks. And right now, banks have, in my opinion, a comically low 4% of your money that they have to keep. The rest they can gamble with, right? So they need to keep some amount of money so that if people come and say, hey, where's my money, they can give some money out, right? Now, I'm not a Ron Paul guy. I don't think they have to keep 100% in the bank. That would grind everything to a halt. I think that's crazy, right? But 4%? And they're not even listening to those 4% rules. But don't worry. They're going to increase it all the way up to 8.5% by 2019. And America's not sure we're going to sign yet by 2019. If there's an economy left, if there are banks left by then, sure, yeah. Good luck with that. Young Turks.